Welcome back, guys. My name is Danny Burke, and today we're going to be taking a look at the top 10 scary human experiment stories. Now, just to start off with, I want to say that throughout history, governments, universities, scientists and researchers have strived to learn more about the human body. In order to achieve this though, they sometimes overstep an ethical boundary and end up causing immense suffering to real people. Hopefully, the world has learned from its mistakes, but here are the very worst of them. Alright, starting off at number 10 now, we have the twin studies. Joseph Mengele was the chief medical officer at Auschwitz concentration camp during the Holocaust. Far from being a doctor to the people there, he used them as part of his sort of twisted medical studies. Mengele had an obsession with twins. From 1943 to 1944, he performed experiments on almost 1,500 sets of imprisoned twins. Just 200 of them survived. One study involved injecting different dyes into the eyes of twins to see whether it would change their eye color. Another involved sewing twins together in some sort of sick attempt to create conjoined twins. Some of the other studies are far too graphic to even talk about in this video. Next up at number 9 now, we have the poison labs. This is the name given to the Soviet Union's secret testing labs for poisons. During the 1950s, the researchers there would test deadly poisons on prisoners who came from the gulags. That translates to enemies of the people. These poisons included mustard gas, ricin, digitoxin, curare, cyanide and many others. All of them are deadly to humans and many of them are very painful. The goal of these studies was to find a tasteless, odorless chemical that could not be detected after death. In a final sick twist to this story, the prisoners were told that the poison was actually medicine for them. Insane. Next up at number 8 now, we have the Stanford prison experiment. In 1971, psychologist Philip Zimbardo led a research team to study human behavior when it came to authority and inmates in a prison setting. He set up a mock prison and got 24 volunteers to take part in it. They were assigned as either prisoners or the guards watching over them. Everything was designed to look and feel like a real prison, from the uniforms to the cells and even the ID numbers. The guards started to get way more involved in their roles than the researchers thought they would, verbally and then physically abusing their prisoners. By just the second day, the prisoners had already started to rebel. The guards put it down with brutal violence against them. The prisoners began to get emotionally traumatized, and on the 6th day, the experiment was ended 8 days early. Moving on to number 7 now, we have the Aversion Project. This experiment was a medical torture program in South Africa conducted by Dr. Aubrey Levin during the 1970s and 1980s. It was the military's attempt to root out homosexuality from the army, as it was seen back then as a mental illness. Over the years, 900 gay servicemen and some women were sent to the infamous Ward 22 for sexual reassignment surgeries, some of them as young as 16 years old. These surgeries involved chemical castration and electric shock treatment. The surgery attempted to change the men into physical females. Apart from these surgeries being horrifically unethical, they were also botched quite often, leaving the victims cast out into the world without the hormones needed to maintain their new identities. Coming at number 6 now, we have Project 4.1. This was a US medical study of people living on the Marshall Islands who were exposed to radiation from a nearby nuclear bomb test in 1954. The study effectively saw them as guinea pigs in a radiation experiment. Many people accused the US government of having their primary goal as studying the people and not actually helping them. The poor residents of the Marshall Islands suffered miscarriages, stillbirths, developmental difficulties and impaired growth. The government knew the American public would not react kindly to news of this experiment and ordered everyone involved to keep it a secret. But as you can tell, secrets always get out. Next up at number 5 now, we have the Monster Study. With a name like that, you know it's not going to be good. This study took place at the University of Iowa in 1939 by Wendell Johnson. They took 22 orphan children and split them into 2 separate groups. One group was given positive speech therapy. That means they were praised and encouraged as they became more fluent in English. The other half got the exact opposite. They were belittled, even bullied every single time they made a mistake. This had a serious negative effect on the children. Some of them even stopped speaking altogether. Their mental health and academic studies suffered greatly. The university tried to sweep all of this under the rug, but eventually the details came out. They were criticized heavily for damaging vulnerable orphan children, maybe permanently, just to prove a theory. The university issued a public apology in 2001. At the number 4 spot now, we have the Willowbrook State School. This was a school in New York for people with mental disabilities. Starting from the late 1950s, medical researchers noticed there were large hepatitis outbreaks there. They studied studied it to gain a better understanding of the illness. However, the researchers seemed to cross a line when they began feeding live hepatitis viruses to 60 healthy children in order to study them. They watched their skin and eyes turn yellow, their livers got bigger, and they began to vomit and even refuse to eat. The researchers justified all of this by saying, well, they were going to get hepatitis anyway, but history has definitely condemned them. Moving on to number 3 now, we have the Tuskgee Experiment. This clinical study by the US Public Health Service took place for an astounding 40 years, beginning in 1932. It involved offering 399 poor black males who had syphilis a treatment. However, the researchers withheld the treatment as their real aim was to just study the progress of syphilis on humans. In 1947, penicillin became available as a treatment. Some of the victims began to look elsewhere for help, but the researchers told them not to and continued to lie about their true condition. When the study finally ended in 1972, just 74 of the 399 test subjects were still alive. 28 of them had died of syphilis, 100 from other complications. 40 of their wives had also been infected, and 19 of their children were born with congenital syphilis. As part of a class action lawsuit, the US government paid $9 million to the surviving participants and their descendants. For many people though, the pain can never be healed with money. Next up at number 2 now, we have mustard gas. In 1943, the US Navy exposed its own sailors to mustard gas in order to test the effectiveness of their new protective clothing for it. They wanted to see how it stood up in a real life situation and not just in a lab. Perhaps the most infamous of these experiments involved 17 and 18-year-old males still in boot camp who were asked if they wanted to take part in an experiment that would shorten the war. Of course, many of them said yes, but it wasn't until they reached a lab that they were told it would involve mustard gas. Some of them left at this point, but many of them didn't. Most of the participants suffered extreme external and internal burns. They were largely ignored by the Navy after that because they didn't want to draw attention to this awful experiment. And finally, at number 1 now, we have Unit 731. This was the secret chemical warfare research unit of Japan during World War II. They wanted to study the human body in perverse ways and mainly did so on Allied prisoners of war as well as Chinese civilians. Experiments included limb amputation to study the effects of blood loss, and sometimes they would even try and reattach amputated limbs to the other side of the body just to see what would happen. One other famous experiment there involved freezing all of the subject's limbs and then amputating them one by one until only the victim's head and torso remained. This is only really scratching the surface into the horrors that Unit 731 brought upon its many victims. Well guys, that was pretty disturbing to say the least. If you do want a sort of pick-me-up, we do have a lot of happy top 10 videos on this channel, I promise. Let me know what you guys want to see next. My name is Danny Burke, thank you for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.